Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So we're continuing with our series on COVID inspiration, using the Bhagavad Gita as the foundation, discussing the dilemma in life that Arjuna is facing right now, which is a stark reality to him. And Krishna is trying to elucidate to him that there's more to life than you're observing, Arjuna. There's more to life than what you're understanding. And gradually, through the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, he's step by step bringing Arjuna's consciousness higher and higher and higher. So we're starting on the level of lamentation. If you've seen, we've started on the level of lamentation, which is the natural default setting for life. It's the natural default setting that we all face in life. And we'll discuss why is it that we choose that as the easier option to face life. Instead of using wisdom, we use knowledge. And today, we're going to see the progression of Arjuna from lamentation, which is ordinary knowledge, to wisdom, to now dhira. It's a new concept that Krishna is going to introduce to Arjuna today, that one who is dhira. What is this dhira? It's a very powerful state of being. It's a very powerful consciousness. So we continue today, Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuyate. Translation: as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. So one of the first things Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are lamenting because you haven't learned how to observe. You haven't learned the process of observation. Therefore, you'll see that if you actually observed, you will see that the body was changing at every moment. And these are defining features: birth, boyhood, youth, old age. These are just pillars. But if you actually observed, you would have seen that every moment the body is changing. Today you had to shave. Today a new pimple landed up somewhere. That means that body from yesterday to today has changed. So if we look even more refined, we'll see that every moment the body is changing. Every second the body is changing. So when we assess on that dimension, then we can see that that assessment as a process of life is death. Therefore we say when we have happy birthdays, it's one step closer to the grave, right? So one may say it's not a nice thing to say, but is it nice when we're suffering due to that understanding? When we're suffering and we're in pain, then is it nice? It's not nice also. Why it's not nice? Because we've not assessed ourselves. We haven't learned how to observe. And this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna here. You haven't learned how to observe, Arjuna. Let's see what he says. The soul similarly passes into another body at death. So these are different stages of the body. And you can't be in this world if you don't have a body. There's 8.4 million species of life, according to Padma Purana. So you can't be in this world if you don't have a body. And if we attain perfection, then we gain a spiritual body. Because a body means an opportunity to do activity. So the soul is active by nature. But how does it express that? Through the body. So in the material conditioned state, we have a material body. And then when that dies, we have a subtle body. And when we attain the perfection, we have a spiritual body. So if you see what is the science of the body, it's different stages. Every moment the body is changing. Therefore, if you assess that as a process of life, you'll see that we are reincarnating every moment. It's not that we are reincarnating at the moment of death. Every moment you are reincarnated. To be incarnated means to be in body. And if yesterday's body is different from today's body, means you've already changed it. You've already taken another body. And what is the speed of change of these different stages? Every moment. So the time factor. The time factor governs the rate, the speed of change of the body. So in order to understand this, if each time you're looking at a clock, each time you look at your watch, you're not measuring time, you're measuring life. You're measuring life. Understand that. So when you see this as a process, you have a different understanding and appreciation of life and the gifts that God has given you. It's just that we don't know how to see the gifts. We are seeing it as problems. If our ignorance is removed and we look with the eye of a dhira, a sober person, a person who has wisdom about spiritual world and the material world, then we have a different perspective of life. And then can you imagine how we live life? Completely in a blissful state. A sober person is not bewildered by such changes. So for the first time now, we're getting a higher level of consciousness called dhira. Dhira, the person who is dhira. Who is this person? What is this dhira? Dhira means the person. Krishna is saying in this verse, right? Dehino. So dehino, the person. Sminyata dehe. So the dehino and the dehe. The dehe is the body. The dehino is the person within the body. What is he? Dhiras tatra namuyate. He's the one who sees life with sobriety. Dhiras tatra namuyate. So this is very important. Don't just be another dehino, another living entity within a body. Be dhira, dhiras tatra. So what does Prabhupada put in the purport? Prabhupada says here, since every living entity is an individual soul. So we covered that in depth yesterday, that we are all individual souls. And we were discussing through philosophy and Prabhupada with the Mayavadis that we all are individual living beings and eternally individual. Not that we merge and become one with God. So many arguments were given by Arjuna there, and Krishna countered that. And Prabhupada was saying with logic how we can understand this as a process of life. So let's see what he says further in the purport here. Each is changing his body every moment. So Prabhupada is saying every moment we're changing our body. So why does he say this? Because he's teasing us and saying, you are lamenting at the time of death, but when your body was changing from yesterday to today, why you didn't lament about that? Why haven't you lamented? Because you haven't noticed. You haven't noticed it so drastically. Because that death means that the body has stopped. But you haven't noticed when the body was changing from yesterday to today, from boyhood to youth to old age. You haven't noticed the body. So all those stages are nothing but death. Yesterday's body cannot be got back. So why you didn't lament for yesterday's body? So again, the problem is not lamentation, it's your understanding. It's your understanding. You're lamenting for that which is not worthy of grief. He's telling Arjuna that. He's telling Arjuna that. Because you don't have full knowledge, why didn't you lament for yesterday's body? You're lamenting now when the body has stopped. Why? So that means there's a deeper aspect of you that needs to be addressed. It's your emotions, not your understanding. Your emotions need to be addressed. Because if it wasn't your emotions, why didn't you cry for yesterday's body? That's gone. It won't come back. So why didn't you cry for that? It's your emotions, Arjun. It's your emotions that got you in a loop. So be careful of that. You have to assess yourself from that level. You see how deep the process of life goes? This is Bhagavad Gita, devotees. Bhagavad Gita is very deep. So we're observing the progression of human consciousness. First on the level of knowledge, which is as a symptom, lamentation, because it's incomplete. Then to the level of wisdom, which is a more complete understanding than knowledge, because it's realized information. That means you've practically given a thought about life. And today we're going to see about the dhira, the personality who has an incredible sense of sobriety. Prabhupada uses this word, sobriety. So let's assess this gradual progression of Arjuna's consciousness as he's developing from knowledge to wisdom to dhira. So as we're studying Bhagavad Gita, we're seeing that what has changed is actually our consciousness. if we change our consciousness, reposing it to the process of life as a gift from God, as a gift from providence, that there is meaning in this. If you judge God's ability just by creation, remember He has unlimited ability. So surely when He's giving you events of life by providence, that's not random. Surely when He's giving you problems and joys, that's not random. It's not just happening by chance. If He's the supreme creator and physically He's created this world in such an amazing way that even up to now we can't make sense of this world, then can you imagine what He's created individually for your life? What has He created for you, for your life? Now, as much as He's done that, He's also given the mechanism of the mind, which falls susceptible to lamentation. Because when it doesn't understand something, when it can't get its own desires fulfilled, when it can't get its own way, it laments. And that is our independence. And that is our only independence, that we have a choice. Remember, we were discussing the last time that to decide not to act is also a decision. We don't realize that. We've also decided now, I'm not going to act. I'm not going to go that way. So that's also a decision. So if we're going to understand this level of dhira, then we're going to have to assess life on all three dimensions. The physical dimension, the subtle dimension, and the spiritual dimension. And from that platform, then and only then can you see how the body is changing from boyhood to youth to old age. From any other platform, you're not going to be assessed that, because your consciousness is connecting on the bodily level. Your consciousness is seeing yourself as a boy. Your consciousness is seeing yourself as a youth. Your consciousness is seeing yourself as an old man. So if your consciousness is there, you have nothing higher to stand on, then you're going to relate to the world as the body. But if your consciousness is higher as dhira, as from the spiritual platform, the third dimension, then you have a whole different perspective on life. And you can see life for what it is, and how Krishna is intervening in your life every moment as a gift. He's trying to teach us on an individual basis. Therefore, our lives are custom designed. You see, people have similar events. They don't have the same events. Similar and same is different. If God can create so much of variety in creation on this planet, then surely He can create variety in our individual lives. So this is why if you study Bhagavad Gita, what is going to change is your consciousness and your perspective of life. By studying Bhagavad Gita, we're studying the case study of Arjuna in his development. And we're seeing that already Krishna today is on the third level. He's brought Arjuna from lamentation or just knowledge to wisdom, and now he's going to talk about dhira. It's the same personality, but what has changed? The change is in his consciousness. That's why Srila Prabhupada called our institution and our process Krishna Consciousness, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and the process is Krishna Consciousness. What is going to change is our consciousness. Our physical and external dimensions are not going to change. That's what we're hoping for. And why is that? Because we're seeing the body from that level of consciousness. We're seeing it from the bodily level and the subtle level. We are not seeing it from the spiritual level. If you have that wisdom, that level of consciousness, then one becomes dhira. Dhira. He becomes dhira. So where we are in the Bhagavad Gita, we're just on this third level of dhira. We've evolved from knowledge to wisdom to dhira. And gradually we're going to see how Krishna is training Arjuna, how he is removing his ignorance so he can see the world for what it is, not bigger than it is. So this is also like the Ram platform. Lord Sri Ram, he assessed the world from this platform, Maryada Purushottam, the perfect human being. So in order to be a perfect human being, we even see in the Bible it says that, right? That Lord is made, that man is made in the image of God. And if God is perfect, that means the image is also perfect. But at the moment of consciousness that we are on, we're not perfect. So what is imperfect about life? It's our consciousness. We have to work on our consciousness and how to develop that through proper thought. So Ram symbolizes this. If you study the life of Lord Ram, you'll see that whatever had happened to him, he never protested it. He always accepted it as a higher providence. When he got rejected by his father, when he got criticized by his stepmother, when he got criticized by the Dobiwala, he followed what was dharmic. He followed what was righteous. He never followed his emotions. And this is the defining feature of knowledge. That knowledge that is imperfect creates lamentation, which means an imbalance in emotions. Emotions are sweet, but when they work against you through lamentation, they can really mess one's life up. And we're going to explore that in further detail. So what does it mean, sobriety? What is a sober person, a dhira? It's somebody who is able to control his emotions through wisdom. We find that most of the time we try to control our emotions through determination. Determination doesn't last long. It's like motivation and inspiration. Motivation is good, but it only lasts for a few minutes. But inspiration means yayatma suprasiddhati. It's coming from the level of the soul. Once you're inspired, you don't need motivation, right? So this is the difference. So sobriety means one is able to balance his life with his emotions and his experiences. His experiences and his emotions are in balance. If one's emotions is unbalanced, then the experience of life as a gift from God becomes hellish. But if emotions are sweet, then the experience of life as a gift of God becomes wonderful. It becomes the greatest opportunity to express this human feature, to express the human form of life to its full extent. So in this way, if his emotions are tuned, he learns from his experiences. And if his emotions are unbalanced, it becomes suffering. So what is the problem then? So devotees, can you see how we're refining to what is the problem of life? Lamentation is not the problem. And Krishna has said this. And Krishna has said this. He's just chastised Arjuna in the last verse. So he's telling Arjuna, you're not only lamenting for the dead, you're also lamenting while you're alive. So lamentation is not a problem. The problem is your emotions. Lamentation is not a problem, because if death was really the problem, then we see you're lamenting right through life. Every time you have an incident in life, you're lamenting. So death is not a problem. It's a profound experience. Death is a very powerful experience when somebody is close to you. But you are lamenting all through life. So it's not that death is the problem is lamentation. You don't know how to control your emotions. You haven't learnt. And why is that? Because you've assessed your emotions only from the bodily level. You haven't understood the higher levels, the subtle level and the spiritual level. If you see your emotions from that level, you have a whole different perspective of life. And that's why Krishna is giving Arjuna this wisdom. That if you see life from the spiritual perspective, you have 3 dimensions of reality to look at. Not just the body, which is one dimension of reality. This becomes very empowering. So devotees, what is the result of somebody's emotions which is unbalanced? It forces one into a very deep, dark abyss. And hear me out on this. Because if one's emotions is not balanced, then one goes into a loop. It's like playing an LP. You remember the old days, they used to have LPs. In the previous generation of music, there used to be what was called LPs, long players. You had to put a vinyl record on this turntable. And if the record got scratched, it would keep on playing that same loop again and again and again, that same scratch. So this is what's happened to us. the emotional side of us has got scratched by life. Be it whatever event, be it death, be it circumstances of love, be it friendship, be it money, be it job, be it our own wife or husband, be it our children, whatever the incident may have been, it's created a scratch on our emotions. And whenever we have an idle moment or two, or three, or four, the mind just starts playing this LP again and again, and it goes scratch, scratch. Scratch, and it keeps on going in a loop. And by doing that, we reinforcing it. And because we are biological units of knowledge, remember? We keep on reinforcing this. We keep on reinforcing the brain. And because it's a powerful emotion, it stirs up chemical changes within our body. So gradually our bodies start getting addicted to this. Because it's a chemical, because the body is releasing cortisol, because the body is releasing chemicals, because it's experiencing deep emotions. And over a while, the body starts getting addicted to this. It starts getting addicted to this chemical release that the body is doing each time you go to this deep, dark, emotional experience. So after a while, the body then learns that you do this once a week, twice a week, thrice a week. And therefore, when you're not doing it, the body starts to think now, what's happening? There's no chemical release at the moment. So it starts to force that negative emotion back into your mind so that it can have the chemical release that you've trained it to be. So you see what a vicious cycle this becomes? Just from that one emotion, your body now becomes addicted to a spike of that negative emotion, which is releasing chemicals. Thus you become like a zombie. Devotees, see how important it is to have control of your emotions, which means to understand your mind, which means to become dhira. So we see, devotees, that we go in this emotional loop. Maybe we've lost a child, maybe we've lost a mother, maybe we've lost a father, maybe we've lost a brother or sister, maybe we've lost a dear friend. This emotional side of our psyche has not been addressed. And because of that, again and again, we hurt ourselves emotionally. And because we're doing it so often, we're even hurting ourselves physically, because the body sees this as a spike of chemicals. And again, it gets addicted to the spike. So it reminds us once a week. Once a week, you didn't have your emotional breakdown yet. And by that emotional breakdown, I get this chemical release. So it's time to have your emotional breakdown. Devotees, you see how powerful this is? We don't realize what we're doing to ourselves. Therefore, it behooves us to address ourselves from the spiritual dimension, which is the platform of every other level of existence. We're going through the process of life, but with the old software. We're going through the process of life, but with the old emotions, old personality, with the old understanding of life. And if we're going through the process of life with old understandings, expecting new changes, that's impossible.